Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. They're the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter and X. All of that coming courtesy of Brella Sports. And you see in the corner of the screen, of course, we are still rocking with MANSCAPED. So we'll just get that out of the way. We'll talk more about it later. But go ahead and use the code TMDUP site-wide for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. John Saponaro back in sunny Southern California, Los Angeles to be exact. And that means my co-host, Matt Ibanez, who is doing a lot of the heavy lifting with my crazy schedule over the last few weeks. And I am sad to say that that is going to continue. But if anybody can handle it, he can handle it. Matt Ibanez holding it down back in New Jersey. Ibby, a week off from doing this thing together, but we're back this week. And like I said, next couple weeks, we'll get it later, but not so much. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you for asking. And, the sun has been brutal. Obviously, summer started for me, being a teacher, but I do have a summer camp job. So I've been out in the sun all day. So I've been roasting. But at least, as people see me every Wednesday, they're going to notice that my tan's getting a little bit better. So I'm kind of, going back and forth with John. So he's not as tan as me, though sometimes that redness could be from him yelling at people. But either here nor there. Doesn't matter. The tan is getting a little bit better, but no, I'm doing well. And obviously, the month of June has been treating us well as Mets fans because the team has been playing well. If there was one thing I said a couple of weeks ago when you were here, I said this team, they're going to have to go like 16-8, if not a little bit better during this month of June to get back to a game or at 500 or a game above 500 or a game below 500. And it's June 26th, and this team is tracking that way at the moment. If they win today, I believe we're at 500. So, things are going well for this team, and there's plenty to talk about and stuff that I hit on last week when you weren't here. And of course, we'll recover some of those things so you can put your 2 cents on them, specifically the purple power that has come over this team over the last month. But I'm excited. It's Wednesday. The red light's on. We're live. And of course, the chat is filling up. We got 126 people here so far. Make sure you sub the channel, like the video, and let's get into this. Let's have some fun.
We are rocking and rolling. We are off to the races. I think this chat room is going to continue. The viewership is going to continue to go up and up and up. So, like Ibby said, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube, like it, retweet it if you're watching on Twitter or X. Jump into the comments for a second to address the elephant in the room. Where is John Manconi? I want to see if he actually shows up. Courtesy of Joe DeMayo. Shout out to Joe DeMayo, by the way, the Mets pod, jumping into the comments here. Had a little bit of fun with Manconi back and forth over on Twitter. So, look, John Manconi will be with us, I think, later on in the show. Had something pop up. So he's going to try to join us in a little bit. But in the meantime,
supposedly, we'll see.
John Manconi's a busy guy nowadays.
He's a busy guy.
It is hard to get a hold of John. It was a little easier back in the day. No, but I mean, look, he had another kid. He's running around. He's doing his thing.
He's got stuff.
He's got stuff going on, over with the pitching clinic and stuff like that too. So if he's able to join us, he said, whoa. Shut up, Joe. Courtesy of John.
So he can jump in the comments. But
Joe, listen, John can do the show, but only via text. Like, what is this? Like a not safe for work situation where he can't come on? No, it's all good. I've done that before. I know I've been at the airport lounge or on the plane watching and live texting along. So no, if John can join us in the actual show, from Keith, is Minconi grilling right now? Is that what came up?
He might be. He might be.
If I don't care that I live 3,000 miles away. If I don't get invited to a John Minconi fucking barbecue soon,
I said that to him. I said, I want some of this food, man.
I know. The guy is legit. The guy, listen, John Minconi is like the Arby's of Mets Twitter. He has the meats. And I just want to know when the invitation is going to come down. Okay, so anyway, let's get into the conversation. Hopefully we can talk to John for realsies in a little bit. But Ibby, Mets win a big game. Oh, wait, hold on. Damn it. I'm trying to move on. Till Mets do us part. Tailgate, baby, courtesy of John Minconi. Let's do it. We have to figure out a time to set it up. But look, the Mets win a big game, Ibby, yesterday. The Mets win a game against, a team that is not a division rival, but is a city rival. The Mets beat up on Garrett Cole, one of the best pitchers in the sport. I understand that he is just coming off of his IL stint, and this was only his second start. I also understand that the Mets have owned Garrett Cole for the better part of his career. Now, it's some of that time. Right. Yeah, I think it's now over 6 with everything that went on yesterday. That's fine. Garrett Cole was not always the Garrett Cole that won the Cy Young. Garrett Cole was not always the Garrett Cole that went on that dominant stretch in Houston. Garrett Cole was a good pitcher in Pittsburgh, but, he's certainly not the guy that he is now. And so some of that, of course, happened when he was playing, in the same league as the Mets. So, take all of that with a grain of salt, but understand that he is one of, if not the best pitchers in baseball, over the last, 5 years or whatever it is. So, look. You take that, you take the win, you don't throw the wins back. But Ibby, unfortunately, the win doesn't count. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Why?
The win doesn't count because, according to a lot of Mets fans, the season ended in May. It's the first time ever that the baseball season ended in May. So as big of a win as this is, as important as it is for the Mets to get back to 500, and they're one game away from doing that, unfortunately, the win doesn't count because the season ended in May. And from the Yankees' perspective, the win only counts because this is the high point of the Mets season. Of course, it's the World Series for the Mets.
This is big. It's the World Series.
But if the Mets, of course, lose, it's business as usual for the Yankees, and they're the little brother forever, and they beat up on them, and that's what it is. Yeah. But of course, the Mets land is weird now, Ibby, because everybody who's watching this, everybody is listening to this, I don't know how you should feel, because you should either not care because the win doesn't count, or you should be celebrating because this was our World Series. That's the perspective. That's the only perspective that you can have. Of course, I'm being a total dick when I say that. Look, Ibby, this team has been on a roll. This team has been absolutely doing what they need to do, which is playing well, pitching well enough, hitting timely, putting up runs, doing everything that they need to do, and also along the way, beating up on some bad teams. We said, hey, and the Yankees are not a part of that. The Yankees are not playing great right now. The Yankees are basically being dragged along by their starting pitching, which has been terrific, and maybe the two best players in baseball, right? Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. So, look, the Mets are doing everything that they needed to do. So I'm sorry. I don't care that people thought the season was over a month ago. I don't care what Yankee fans think. I don't care what Keith McPherson says. I don't care about any of this stuff. Yeah. I don't care about it because sports are supposed to be fun. The season is long, and right now, it's fun. The Mets are playing well. What did I say a couple weeks ago, Ibby? I said enjoy it. Find things to enjoy. And I even admitted, look, I don't know. The Mets team had not, at that point, been giving us a lot of reasons to think that they would be able to turn this thing around because they weren't playing well. But I did say it's a long season and anything can happen. I wasn't confident when we did that show. I think it was right before the London series. Right. But ever since they went to London and came back, they've been playing like a different team. Now, you want to give that credit to Mark Vientos injecting some life into this team? I think there's credit to go there. You want to give that credit to Francisco Alvarez coming back and injecting life into this team? I think there's credit there. But there's also credit, Ibby, to Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, J.D. Martinez, Pete Alonso, I got to include Harrison Bader, even though Harrison Bader is not a part of the core of this team. But the better players on this team, I think they said it on the broadcast last night, are playing better. The core of this team, who all seem to start slow, are starting to heat up. So, give credit to where credit is due. You can give credit to the Grimace. It's funny that Keith says this because, I know he's buddies with Sal Licata, but, don't let Sal Licata, don't let people like that, ruin what is fun. Baseball's fun. It's a sport. It's a game. And it should be fun. And it doesn't matter where the fun comes from. It doesn't matter if it's because they want to play Jose Iglesias' song. It doesn't matter if they want to put a statue of the Grimace on the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones outside Citi Field. None of it matters. It's fun. Just have fun. And yes, I'm not trying to downplay it, Douglas. You're absolutely right. Bader has been one of the most clutch bats in the lineup all season. So,
yes.
Ibby, look, this team is playing great, and it is it's been incredible. It's been fun to watch. Fortunately, I was in Germany last weekend, and they had so many day games because they were playing Chicago, which lined up really well. Being in Europe, I was able to watch 2 of those 3 games. Mm-hmm. So it was really exciting. It was really fun, and I'm loving it. I like the Grimace. I think some people are taking it a little too far. I love the 7 line, but some of the stuff they put out yesterday is a little cringy. Yeah. But I can't say don't do it because I just said have fun with it. Mm-hmm. So have fun with it.
Well, we all know sometimes when these things happen, they take off. You love it, and then some people take it a little bit too far. You're like, let's scale it back. Let's not ruin a good thing. So I understand what you're saying in that sense. But no, I mean, it's June has been a nightmare for this franchise for a long time. It's why we always say the term the June swoon. But to your credit, you said it a couple weeks ago where you're like, look, things happened in the month of May, and you're like, look, the good thing we can pull out of this is it happened a month earlier. And now you have a little bit more time to try and self-correct things. I had mentioned how this team needed to really have a strong June to get really back into the thick of it when it came to the wild card. And they're right there right now. And there's one thing I mentioned last week, just to reiterate it, since you weren't here, and to others who might have not been here when Tone was on with me. And I was saying how May nearly broke me because I was seeing a lot of the stuff that I saw in 2023. And I thought there's no way this team can get out of it. They can't get out of their own way. They can't find a groove. But this is where the credit has to go to Carlos Mendoza. He has a full grasp of this team, a belief in this team. David Stearns knows when to push the right buttons, put people down in terms of calling up and down when it comes to roster maneuvers and things of that nature. So they have the pulse for this team, and it's clicking. And this team is really starting to believe in one another, which is why we're seeing the results. But also, and I mentioned this last week as well, I said myself, I said you, I said Tone, we all going into this season had very, very high expectations for the top 5 bats in this lineup. Even after we said JD comes in, we're like, look, we still have a lot of confidence in this offense because if they're right and they're proper, they can provide enough for this team to win ball games and be in the thick of it. We're finally it took a while. And it nearly broke a lot of us, but it took a while. But you're seeing what this team can do. And if you want to say it's powered by, the color purple, powered by Grimace, I made an awesome looking, and I'm going to say it's awesome because I think it does look cool. I made an awesome looking graph last week, and I'm bringing it up again with updated stats so everyone can see. And you have it here within the Grimace era. The Mets offense has a 297, 367, 544 slash line, a 160 weighted runs created plus with an MLB best 25 home runs and counting. The month of June, the month of Grimace, the month of the color purple. It's been great, and it's fun baseball. And the thing that we've been screaming about on this show was we want to watch good baseball. No matter what comes of the season, we're like, we want to watch good baseball. And the month of May was anything but that. It was horrible baseball. Now we're being rewarded as fans for sitting through that garbage. They're playing great. Francisco Lindor's on another level. Francisco Alvarez, we'll talk about him in a little bit, has been really providing.
Did you know
that
Francisco Lindor has a 586 batting average leading off, or on base percentage leading off ball games?
The Mets offense since he took over the leadoff spot, I want to say is somewhere within the top 3 in every single category. since he took over, the overall offense, once he went to the leadoff spot, is 1, 2, or 3 in every major category of offense. He's on another level, deserves all the respect in the world, retaking his claim to being one of the better players in the NL. So again, as always, I'm not talking to those people anymore because there's no point, because you can't fix stupid. But all in all, fantastic June. And if there's anything that this team has done, it's instilled confidence within the fan base moving forward.
Yeah, and look, that's why I said what I said. Now, I don't want to go back, a month, whatever, but that's why I said what I said before that London series, because there is a difference between sitting here looking at what happened in May, Ibby, and saying, man, this team is not giving me a lot of reasons to believe. This team is not giving me a lot of things I can defend. And being honest and objective with what you're seeing and how what you're seeing is making you feel. There's a difference between doing that and saying season's over.
Yeah.
Season's not over in May. No baseball season has ever been over in May. No pennant has ever been won in May. Now, Jeff Cohen, right? He made this comment before, all wins count. And I agree, all losses count. They count in April, they count in October. But remember when the Mets had that 11-1 run? They didn't even make the playoffs.
That's right.
I know we talked about that before on the show this season, but they didn't even make the playoffs. Do you know how bad you have to play to squander an 11-1 start? You have to play so bad, and they were under 500 for the rest of the season. That's how they buried themselves. So look, was May bad? May was brutal. I meant everything I said, but I also meant the fact that you cannot worry about burying a team then. You look at the Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners had this massive lead in the AL West. All of a sudden, the Seattle Mariners aren't playing that good. All of a sudden, their lead is down to 5 and shrinking. Now, they may go on another run. I think they're a pretty good baseball team. They're not getting Pete Alonso, despite what the fuck people are tweeting out. It's not happening. But they may go on another run. They may not. They may win the division. They may not. They may make the playoffs. They may not. But you look at it, this stuff is, I know it's cliche, but the season is a marathon. Yeah. And you can't pack it up in May. You can't pack it up in June. The difference was, and I thank you for bringing up what I said, where all this stuff happened a month earlier than it did last year. And this was my whole point on the trade deadline that I was talking to a lot of people on Twitter about over the last couple of weeks before the Mets really, really got rolling. And they're like, oh, the trade deadline's coming up. What are we going to do? What kind of moves are we going to make? There's not the kind of moves out there that were available to the Mets last year. One, when all of the shit hits the fan in June, you're a month closer to the trade deadline. Also, when you have these assets that you know can fetch you things, it's a perfect storm when you have Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander and some of these guys that you can unload and you can pay money to the other team to get prospects back. Mets already did that. Mets already did that last year. The Mets don't have those kinds of players this year. Now, I know, some of those guys can fetch you something, but that's why it's like you can't think about that in May. You can't worry about it because now, all of a sudden, all the reports are what? Mets are going to be buyers at the deadline.
Yeah, we're buyers now. Yeah, everyone's buying.
Now we're buyers, right?
Yeah.
Except some people think they're still going to trade Alonso, which is the stupidest thing. Listen, I know I'm not going to turn this into an Alonso show. We talked too much about him over the last, month. But Ibby, there is no reason in the world for the Mets to trade Pete Alonso the way the Mets are playing right now and where the Mets are in the standings right now. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't know if they're going to re-sign him. You know how I feel about bringing him back. That's a conversation for another day. Trading him makes zero sense. Trading even other assets like JD Martinez, 0 cents. Severino, the Mets should probably try to extend Severino. At the very least, they should let his contract play out and then talk to him in the offseason because that's how good Severino's been. So, now I think this team is in a position where they could maybe kind of buy and sell. They can pull, on two threads at the same time. If you could ever find a way to get out from under Jeff McNeil, if you could ever find a way to get out from under Starling Marte, although that's going to be impossible now that his leg has to be amputated below the knee or whatever happened. Started off with, ow, it hurts. It's been hurting for a couple weeks. It'll be 15 days. Now he's going to be out at least a month. Listen, I don't know what's going on with him. But if you could ever sell off some pieces like that, or maybe, you sell off a Sean Mania and you bring in one of the kids into the rotation full time, something like that. There are ways to buy and sell, but there's ways to get creative. And right now, Ibby, the Mets are not in the position of going all in, pushing all their chips to the middle of the table, selling off major prospects to get rental pieces. No, but the Mets are in a position where, you look at the game last night. The Mets are going to have to get bullpen help at the very least.
Yes.
The Mets, fortunately, with Jose Iglesias doing what he's doing, and the fact that they have at least one healthy player in the minors, maybe two, if you count Brett Beatty as a second baseman, that might be able to come up and play second base if and when Iglesias falls back to the pack and regresses to the mean. But, the Mets might need another bat somewhere too. And again, we're not talking about going out and mortgaging everything, but we're just talking about the fact that right now this is fun. Right now, the Mets are closer to buying than selling. I think they should buy. I think they should get some things that will help improve this team. And again, Ibby, I say this, not all these prospects are going to pan out anyway. So in the right deal, I'm not opposed to, getting creative. I'm not opposed to going and trading I'm just throwing this out there. You trade in Acuna for a guy who's, got 3 more years of control. I'm not opposed to doing that. So, the Mets are it's a fun place because now we can talk about this stuff rather than talk about the, boring stuff, the sad stuff, the hang your head stuff. Before I throw it back to you, I just want to jump into the comments. Keith saying, in all honesty, The Undertaker was shoveling the dirt on the casket in a Buried Alive match, and Grimace stuck his hand out of the dirt. The visual of that, of it being everything playing out that way and it being the Grimace is fantastic. Rosie saying that Keith McPherson video is unbelievable. Mets need to just focus on
He's
winning.
A loser.
He's an absolute loser. He may be the worst of the people on that network, and that is saying something. James Dowling saying, any chance the Mets get rid of Drew Smith this year? Haha. Drew Smith may have gotten rid of himself because of the injury that he suffered potentially in the Edwin Diaz stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
Here you go. Keith saying, I take credit for the Grimace costume yesterday with the 7 line. It was mine. So we know the culprit. Aunt Rivera checking in. The month of Grimace and oh my God, OMG, which is, of course, the single from Jose Iglesias. And don't forget about, I don't know who coined this. I don't know if it was Jolly Olive or some other folks. Whoever said the gay Grimace Mets, it's the best thing in the world. It is the most fantastic thing in the world. Keith saying, hey, Sap, Grimace is your co-host for the QBC MC duties on December 7th. You know what? Fine. Honestly, I'll do the damn thing in a Grimace costume. I don't care. I think the one person in the 7 line that went out and got the Grimace tattoo, Ibby, I think that's a little early. But a
little early. Listen,
there's going to be a lot of Grimace tattoos if the Mets ever fuck around and win a World Series. I'm not saying it's happening.
If that happens,
I'm just saying.
There's my first tattoo.
I might get one with you. I'm not going to lie. I might get one with you. So, look, it's fun, man. Right now we're having fun. This show is fun, and the Mets are fun. Dare I say, the magic is back.
I said to Tone last week when he was on with me that I was very happy that the things were going the way that they were, because I had said to you multiple times, I said to other people, I was like, it got very repetitive. Like every episode we were doing for like a 3-week span was basically the same conversation over and over and over again, and that sucked. It was getting tired, and it's like there's only so much you can say. And the fact that this team is playing so much better and it's giving us a lot more to be hopeful about. And there's one thing I will say, like when it came to the whole buying and selling aspect, and I know I've been on here multiple times saying that I thought this team would sell, but the main thing had always been, it always comes down to what you could get back in return, which is why I think what you said is possible when you're thinking along the lines of this team can sell off some pieces that don't belong here or that aren't helping us, which I think is still proper. You can sell off certain pieces and then take smaller assets and then package those assets to get something that can actually help you for this year. And I know this could be accredited to Aunt Rivera over at Subway to Shea as well. But and I agree with him 100% on this, because it's been something I've been talking about as well. You want to make sure that you're building something here that allows others to see it and go, I actually think I could fit over there. and I would want to go there. So when you see these things and you see these guys and these veterans welcoming in and allowing the likes of Vientos to come in and thrive and grow, and Alvarez to take on more of a leadership role and grow and provide, and you see these things, and again, I've said it 1,000 times, the youth was what was going to help change this team, and you look at what those two have been doing, and that's what's going on. So you're finally starting to cultivate a clubhouse that others can look at from the outside and go, that looks really good. And then maybe they do make a trade. I don't know. Maybe they make a trade. They bring someone in. They can bring a bullpen arm, whatever, another bat, whatever it is. It depends what happens on this roller coaster by the time the end of July rolls around. But you want to be able to have good players here to then allow others to see it and go, man, the Mets are having some fun over there. Like, it looks as though like the weight's finally off their shoulders. Maybe I can go over there and, things, obviously we all know money plays a big factor, but it's like, maybe you don't have to end up paying as much because people are seeing things and going, maybe that Met tax that a lot of us think that there is in terms of having to pay more just to get someone to want to come here can start, being alleviated a little bit because people are seeing, man, those Mets are having a good time. They're playing some good ball. Let's give them a shot. Let's give an idea that maybe we can have a conversation. Like, that's what you want to get to. I'm not saying we're fully there yet, but it's working in that direction because this team is playing better. So all in all, it's a good thing throughout this entire process moving forward.
Yeah, and I'll jump back into the comments here. This one from Rosie also saying, the Mets are lucky that the NL wildcard race is so open. That's the only thing that's kept them in it.
It's
and
true.
That's true.
It's true.
But you know what? It's the any given Sunday adage.
Yeah.
Any given season, this is just how it's played out right now. And yeah, are the Mets lucky? If the Mets were in, a different, the division is gone because the Phillies have become this powerhouse. But, if the Mets were in a different league, or if the strength of the league was different in reverse, yeah, that matters. But you know what? You play the hands you're dealt. It's the same way you don't throw wins back. A win is a win. You'll take what you can get. And in this situation, you'll happily take the fact that it allowed them to stay in it and stay afloat. And now here they are, one game away from hitting the 500 mark. And, a lot of baseball people will say that. You can start to think about the playoffs once you get to 500. Now, with this, it's an older adage because with more teams being added to the playoffs every year, that changes a bit, right? It's not like, you had to win your division with the wild card and now the extra wild card. You see a situation where, there were wild card teams that were below 500, obviously not at the end of the season, but there were teams in a wild card position a couple weeks ago that were below 500. So, you don't know what's going to happen, but I think there's still some truth to the old adage that, you can start to worry about the playoffs once you get to 500 and you see where you go from there. Look, I hate to bring this up because I know it's a sore spot for a lot of Mets fans, but the 2006 Cardinals are still the team with the worst record to ever go on and win a World Series. They barely made the playoffs, and they beat probably the two best teams that year in the Mets and the Tigers. You can argue that the Yankees were in the mix. They're right there, certainly. But, they beat two of the best teams. And so you never know. You never do know. Nobody would have sat there and said, wow, Texas and Arizona, two best teams in baseball. I mean, look at Texas and Arizona right now. Texas ain't playing like the best team. Arizona might sell. You never know. That's why I said it a couple weeks ago. You can't worry about trading off pieces when there's value in winning. Now, again, it's the difference between trying to win and going all in. If you're the Dodgers, you can spend enough to buy a small country on Ohtani and Glasnow and Betts and Freeman, because the Dodgers have been a model franchise, one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league for a decade. And they can pay the piper at the end of the Ohtani contract, and they're going to have to. The Mets are not in that position, but you got to start somewhere. And winning matters. That's why as a Jets fan, I was so adamant that the Jets needed to win games last year. Yeah, it sucked that Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays into the season. That sucks. It sucks that Zach Wilson is terrible and he was never going to be the quarterback of the future. But they needed to win some games. Fuck a draft pick. Your team is good.
Yeah.
You're not trying to tank because your quarterback went down. If you have a good roster, people like Sauce Gardner need to learn how to win. Yeah. People like Garrett Wilson need to learn how to win at the NFL level. They did a lot of winning in college. They need to learn how to win here. And you know what? There's people on this team, Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez, even veterans, Lindor and Alonso and Nimmo, they've not won anything. Lindor's come the closest, making it to the World Series with Cleveland, but they've not won anything. They need to play these games more. This way you don't take them to task when you go, oh, they won 101 games and they fell apart in the playoffs. Because there's value in getting there and learning how to win. I fully believe that Kansas City beat us in the World Series because they had just lost in the World Series. They knew what it took to be there. They knew what it took to win. If we would have played the Toronto Blue Jays that year, Mets would have been World Series champions. I guarantee it. I know that's Monday morning quarterbacking, but that's the way I've always felt. There's value in winning, and there's value in trying to win, and that's always been my point.
I always like the point you were just talking about before, how people, the length of the season. There was, I wish I next time I'll find it again and then I'll bring it on the show so I can play it. But there's a hilarious meme that shows like a football fan during the season and a baseball fan during the season, and the football fan's like, damn, lost that game. It's close, so I'll get him next week. And then it shows the baseball fan like a random game in the middle of June. It's like, God damn it, this team stinks. It's awful. It's like, well, dude, you still got like it's like 4 more months of the season left. This team is horrible. But it's true. Like, I think a lot of people, flip out, and we're guilty as well because there's certain games you're just like, God damn it, that was terrible or whatever. But it's a long, and I don't think people really realize how long the season truly is. Like you mentioned, like even for us right now, if you mention certain players and you're like, damn, that Omar Narvaez was here, it feels like it was a while ago. You mentioned other guys. Joey Wendell was here. It feels like
Joey Wendell feels like he was on the team a decade ago. I'm not even exaggerating.
Like that's the way
I forgot he was on the team.
Yeah,
I fucking forgot completely. You're right. And, it's funny, and I think I've said this before. I think I said it in the 2022 season when we were doing this show. By the way, shout out to everybody in the chat and everybody watching.
Thank you so much,
over 320 people right now, which we appreciate. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube.
And if a lot of people head on over and like.
Head on over to YouTube. I saw Charlie was having some trouble with YouTube, but he seems to be the only one because a lot of these comments coming in from YouTube. So sorry, Charlie. He switched over to Twitter, X, whatever. And that's why we simulcast, just to make sure people can watch it. But shout out to everybody. Shout out to Tone, by the way. Ibby, he's a little mad. He said, Ibby not saying hi to me is wild. It feels like we had a one-night stand last week. That's
Tone, I mentioned you 3 or 4 times that we were going back and forth in the comments just before, but I love you, Tone. And you did a fantastic job last week, and everyone loved that you were here. You did a great job.
Listen, I was actually bummed. That I wasn't here. We got to have Tone on again. I don't know when I'm here and we can all do it together. Shout out. I guess technically, Tone, thank you for kind of, filling in for me in that regard and doing the show with Ibby. My schedule has been absolutely crazy. And I try to do it when I can, but when I'm overseas, it's real hard. Let's jump back into the comments here. Look, this is an interesting one, Ibby.
What do you got?
Okay. Because none of this stuff should be done now. It's not the time to talk about it. But I do think it's interesting. So I said Severino, the Mets should think about bringing him back.
Okay.
Now, I don't think the Mets need to worry about it today. I don't think this is a conversation they need to have now. I'm just saying he's high on the priority list. Another guy who is on that list of potential people to bring back, and I know he said it in our group chat the other day, but Ant Rivera saying, keep Bader. Mm-hmm. Bader has been excellent.
He's been really good.
He really has been excellent. He is as good as advertised, if not better, defensively. He is absolutely incredible to watch defensively. And look, I'm not trying to just, pat myself on the back here, but I said it on this show that I thought he had another level to go offensively if he stayed healthy and he played. And you see that. He's clutch. He's hit some home runs. Yesterday, he finished with 2 hits, I think, but he hit the ball on the screws.
Hit some big spots. Hit some big spots, too.
Big spots. And look, the Mets have done the right thing by, not overexposing him. He's basically like a 3/4 of the time starter, which I think is smart. Look, I would, again, none of these guys I'm rushing out to sign an extension with today. Mm-mm. But I would entertain bringing him back. I would, because look, I know I talked about this in relationship to Pete, but Ibby, the free agent market is not great after Juan Soto.
No, it's not.
So I think that it's something to entertain, and I'm gonna pull this up. I saw you just started, but I think it's important.
Yeah.
And saying Bader can play in New York, and that's the type of players we need.
100%.
Bader is not afraid of the spotlight, man.
Stearns has said that. Stearns has said he wants guys that he knows can play in New York. He has said that.
First pitch against his old team goes yard.
Yeah.
Right? He gets hit. He's pissed off. What does he do? Jacks one, right? What was that, a couple weeks ago when he got plunked, and then the next time he was up, he hit a home run out, and then he stole after he got plunked, he stole second, and then the next time he was up, he hit a home run.
And then that's
kind of neat.
Yeah. And just seeing Chris Ram's comment here, I want to bring up he plays an effortless center field. I want to say it was Soto last night. He ripped the shot into the gap, and you watched Bader like really track it down. I think he made a sliding catch within the gap, but like he covered a lot of ground on that, and it looked so smooth. But anyone else, like, that's probably a double. If Nimmo's out there, maybe it could be a double. And I love Brandon Nimmo, but Harrison Bader's a better center fielder, and just seeing that happen in real time, I was like, and as an outfielder, like watching that, like I love seeing stuff like that. It's great.
Bader floats. It's true.
Yes, perfect. Yes,
he's effortless. He glides across the field. Nimmo has made himself into a better center fielder than I ever thought he would be. Nimmo is a plus center fielder. He's very good. There's a chance that Bader is the best defensive center fielder in the sport. I mean, Douglas, thank you. 105.4 off Soto's back.
Got there, man.
And he got there. And look, he made that like sliding on his knees catch.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you how quickly he got there. Yeah. Because another center fielder's got to dive for that ball.
Yeah.
Now he slid and still caught it at his chest, which shows you that he slid to get lower so that he can get underneath the baseball so that he can actually make the play a little easier. So look, I love it. And you know what? People talked shit, but now he's here.
I'm here. Hold on one sec.
I brought him in too early. John Manconi, everybody. John Manconi is here.
What's up, guys?
What's up, man? People
How's
said you weren't
working.
People said you weren't going to show up. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I was talking a lot of shit on you, man.
What's up?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. My AirPods are going in and out, so I have no idea what's happening.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hear you. You sound good.
Yeah, you sound good. We were saying DeMeo was talking a lot of shit about you. You gonna take that?
Hey, Joe. He's probably left by now. He saw my face pop up.
Yeah. Look.
I have to take it from him.
We're talking right now about Harrison Bader. But I want to bring up this one from Keith really quick. Saying I watched Bader track the Judge grand slam from the 7-line section. I thought he was going to rob it until I saw it was 50 feet into the bullpen. And John, we're talking about right now is, look, you don't have to do this today. The Mets, there are people on this team that are contributing that are not signed here long term. Severino becomes the obvious one where a lot of people want to see him brought back. Mm-hmm. But I think you start to wonder whether or not Bader has a place on this team going forward. Because he's played exceptionally well. He plays well in New York with the Yankees and now with the Mets. He might be the best defensive center fielder in the sport. He's certainly in the conversation. And I did say this, again, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I did say in the offseason that I think he's got another level offensively that he's never been able to hit because he hasn't stayed healthy. Now, that's a concern when you're talking about another deal for him. But the free agent position player market after Juan Soto is not great. And I think the Mets need to think about some of these guys who are here that maybe need to stay. And I think Bader's putting himself in the conversation.
Definitely. He's not one of those, the Mets signs that are like, you dread when they come to bat. His bat's not there yet, but he's still giving plenty for how he's playing defensively. Mm-hmm. And listen, if he's not going to cost, I wouldn't think, a crazy amount. I mean, has anything come out of kind of what he's looking for?
No, I mean,
nothing really. No,
he's on a $10 million deal 1 year. I think you could probably get him for similar money, just more security.
Even if it's a little more, and let's say he's not your starting 3 outfield or whatever, that's still somebody that, God forbid, somebody goes down, he could still ride you to the playoffs. You're still good enough there where it's not a huge problem if one of your outfielders goes down.
And I think
100%.
Carson's got a good thought on this. I'm not really one to jump in on retaining 1-year deals, but Bader to help us win in the margins doesn't hurt with his spotty peripherals. Tools fill in a roster no matter what they are. And I think that's true. I think his ability to play defense alone, when you look at that, the clutch hitting is great. But, I mean, like I said, he might be the best defensive center fielder in the sport right now. That's how good he is.
And to the point that John was just making.
There or your best friend, Jeff McNeil, playing outfield when we need him in there.
And to John's point just before, just saying how, when he came in, everyone assumed that he was just going to be a glove. The fact that he's providing what he's provided to this point goes a long way, and he's one of our better hitters in big spots. So he's definitely showing that he does belong. And then to John's point, throughout the entire offseason, he's even providing that extra level.
Charlie says Bader is 30, might be looking for a multi-year deal. Wonder how that fits with the young kids who will be ready to hit the majors in the next few years.
They still got to get healthy. They got to get healthy first. That's the whole thing.
Exactly.
Get healthy.
You still need backup. You still need a 4th, 5th guy on the team. You can't just go. We want our studs to come up and be our studs, but you still need the guys to fill in when they're not.
Yeah,
and he seems vibey too. Like the guys like him. He's everything you want out of like that 4th, 5th outfield or 4th outfield guy. Really, with his defense,
like I said, right before you jumped on, he's the kind of guy who he's been like a 3/4 of the time starter, like not like a full-time starter. And I think the Mets have done a really good job in kind of protecting him from maybe, some of the best elite top end right-handed starting pitching where, if he might get a little bit exposed. So I think that's important too. I think everything the Mets have done, obviously the results weren't there in May, but when you look at what we all wanted, which was leadership and continuity, you're seeing it out of Mendoza and you're certainly seeing it out of Stearns, John. This stuff is starting to pay dividends rather quickly. Again, May was ugly. June has been the exact opposite, but forget about that. Like, you're seeing a decisive, well-run organization.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why when, April and May come and go and fans are bugging out and freaking out, and players and Stearns are coming on and being like, we know what we have, we're fine. These guys have been there so long and at so many levels and have seen so many different things. Like, sucks that everybody slumped at the same time. Like, as you guys said earlier, May sucked, but they knew that this was in there, and it is. It's not, it's clearly not fluky. They may not sustain it the whole season, but they know what's in there if everybody plays to their best. That's what happened a couple of years ago. Everybody just so happened to be on for that year until the last little bit. But that's what you need. You have the guys. Not everybody's going to be on constant, but like when they sync up like that, that's when you see fun, special kind of baseball, and they know that.
I want to jump back really quick before we go into the break and kind of change the tone. Ibby and I have talked about this already. We kind of open talking about this, but you got to give credit to a couple places right now for the Mets kind of resurgence. And part of it is, they said it on the broadcast last night, the better players, like you said, playing better. They all started off slow, and that sucks, but Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, obviously Martinez needed a little bit of time to kind of get into the groove, but they've all been great. And then you look at the injection of energy from Mark Vientos and the return of Francisco Alvarez. So, look, just your thought as somebody who played the game, like your thought on these two young players really injecting a ton of energy and sort of, I think, helping revitalize that. When you mix the leadership and the know-how of the JD Martinez, you're really getting it from both sides.
Yep. 1,000%. You can tell, like, if you're walking around clubhouses pregame, postgame, the big thing now is what Iglesias' song that's coming out. The vibes in the clubhouse itself. It's not just on the field, like off the field, the pregame music, all that stuff. It's just a little more life to it. People are yelling across the clubhouse. They're like having fun. They're going around messing around. It starts to loosen. It has a trickle effect. Even if you're not really involved in it or like to yourself a little bit, it still has that trickle effect of just relaxation, fun in the clubhouse, and just going out and doing what they're there to do. Not so much worrying about, it's quiet. Am I dwelling in what somebody said yesterday or what I heard on the news the night before, whatever. No, it's just boom, 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 talking, having fun. And it's fun to see now. You can see it on the field. You see it in the clubhouse with a little hand wave or whatever they're doing in the song.
Look,
love it.
Let's talk about this really quick before we go into the break, because I don't want to spend time on this. Is kind of negative, and it's been a good run. I don't want to spend time on negativity, but so you mentioned the shirt and the way that they're rallying around Jose Iglesias, which I think is great. And this is different because the positional value is different. But a couple years ago, we saw the Jets, the entire roster with Mike effing White shirts while Zach Wilson sat on the bench. And now you're watching the Mets with this big rally around a guy who was supposed to be a part-time player, minor league depth, trying to revitalize his career after, spending all of last year in AAA, a guy who's been, a good major league contributor. And then you've got McNeil. So again, understanding that baseball is not
for McNeil right now.
What happened?
I said, are you feeling bad for McNeil right now? Is that
no? I don't care. No, but again, I want to ask you first, and then Ibby, because I have my own thoughts on it. But again, as somebody who's been in clubhouses, professional clubhouses, and dugouts, understanding that baseball is not football. And second basemen are not quarterbacks, right? Like there's a different positional value because everybody plays a role. Yeah. Do you think any of this is, I don't want to say problematic and stir shit up, but I mean, do you think any of it is an issue for Jeff McNeil? Like, do you think McNeil is buying in, or do you think he's?
I mean, he's not like Zach Wilson dead in the water, like Zach was when that was happening. He's he played yesterday. Went 2 for 4 yesterday, 2 runs. I'm sure there were singles, but it's all right. But no, he's not benched for like the remainder of the season because of this guy. And at the same time, there's in clubhouses, as I just said, like the vibes you feed off of, like you want that energy around you. I think at this point, I would imagine McNeil understands why he's in the position he's in. It would take a lot to not understand that. So his best bet, and it kind of looks like he's relaxed a little, is to kind of get in, like he's got to play his way back onto something. Like nobody's giving it to him. If Iglesias or anybody else steps up and keeps playing, he's not going to. So no, I think he realizes the situation he's in. But more for the team, it's not really like, I think they're rallying they found that song, they got out, like they loved it. It gives them the energy. I think it's less of like them rallying around him and his playing abilities and more just like the song and fun and whatever energy he may bring into the clubhouse. I heard Jeter talk about what's his face, an old infielder for the Yankees, that the Yankees basically kept on for like 4 years or whatever while Jeter was young. And same thing, the guy was their starting second baseman. Jeter, our shortstop, came in and he was just a good clubhouse guy, relaxed. So I don't know if McNeil is going to take that role or not, but I don't think that, Iglesias sure seems to, coming from AAA after the career he's had, it's tough. It's tough to be stuck down there. Even guys that like have a little bit of big league time, it's tough to be stuck down there. So him being able to come up, and I think it says more about him being able to work through that, come up and still kind of inject himself into a lineup like this that's playing good baseball. And I think it just kind of grasped the team around them, and they want to rally with that.
Ibby, what do you think about it? Like, again, I'm not trying to stir shit up when I say that.
No, I get what you're saying.
I could see how it would you would be like, man, this fucking sucks.
I think what's playing into what you're saying too. I think it doesn't help matters that we see, like I've seen everybody else, like every other player I see doing the dance with the hands and wearing the shirts. And it's just like, you don't see McNeil. So you wonder, is this guy like really like, is he pissed off? Is he like not involved? Is he like being shunned or whatever? So like, because, and again, we're living in a society where we have everything thrown at us. So when we don't see something, you're like, everyone starts questioning things, tweeting about it, whatever. But I think I'm with John when he says, when you're a team that's been lacking camaraderie, because we had said, look, for the month of May, we said, and I felt the same thing watching this team, like looking at everything going on, I'm like, it looks like these guys hate each other.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing that was likable. It seemed like it was all business and there was no fun. And baseball's supposed to be fun. If you're just going out there trying to just gut through these games, it's like, it's not going to work. You got to get a little bit more loose. You got to have some fun with each other. And we did not see that the entire month of May. So this comes along. They look at anything as a rallying cry. And it seems like it was more of this as opposed to the Grimace stuff. I think this was more of a thing that really, it brought them a lot closer. And then look, you latch on to anything and you run with it. How McNeil feels about all of this, again, because I'm not seeing a lot from him in terms of all of it, I don't know. So of course I can have curiosities, but overall it's helping the team. And to me, that's what matters the most.
I would think that if he has that problem and he kind of leaves himself out of it, from clubhouses I've been in, when you're vibing, if there's somebody just like not playing that part or just not having, if they're personally struggling and they can't put that aside, whatever, the rest of the team's kind of like, all right, like, F it, go sulk over there. Like, we're going to have some fun. Right. So I doubt that that's dragging the team down at all. It may be the case. It may not be the case at all. But if it is the case, like, clearly it's not affecting the rest of the team. And they're just like, all right, like, go do your thing. Like, we have baseball to play.
Good one from Aunt Rivera, Subway to Shea. Grimace went into the clubhouse and handed out Happy Meals to all the boys. Everyone's happy now. No coincidence. Good enough for me. Listen, whatever gets it done. There's about 440 people watching us right now. We appreciate all of you guys. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, and our guest. We call him the boss around here, John Minconi. John's going to be with us, I think, for the rest of the show. So we're going to head into the break now. It's a good point to take a break, kind of reset things. We have plenty more to talk about. We haven't even touched on Brett Beatty in AAA, the Diaz suspension, or the potential Kodai Senga rehab stuff. We were waiting on two of those things because we now have a pitcher in our midst. So I think it's most appropriate to wait on that stuff until John got here. So if you're watching live and you don't want to sit through a break, don't worry. It's just a 30-second break that we need for some ad spots in the audio version of the show. So don't go anywhere. If you haven't already, like the video while we're in the break, and we will be right back in 30 seconds with more Tilt Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you in 30. Yo, just like that, we are back with Tilt Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter or X, all courtesy of Brella Sports Network. And Ibby, we've somehow gone up in numbers in the break. We were at like 441. Now we're at 452. So people keep on joining in. We appreciate all you guys. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez with you like we are every week. Our guest this week, we got John Minconi. You guys know John Minconi from Mets Twitter, from the Mets, from everywhere. The guy is so active when it comes to all that stuff. John, I gotta ask you this before we talk about Manscaped and independent safes. We got to do, when are we coming over for the barbecue, man? What's going on?
What's going on?
I'm here. you're everywhere, John. You're not too close. You're not too far, but
I'm not too far.
When are you like? You're finally in the back in the United States. I don't know what. I'm around. You guys tell me when you're up, and we can do it here. We can do it at the field, whatever.
All right. Yeah, we should set one up. Maybe.
We should.
I've got an idea for maybe something in August. So
come on, I think I've been doxxed a few times. Just find my address on Twitter.
I just show up at Minconi's house. All right, Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, a lot of stuff to do with our New York Mets. Let's talk about independent safes real quick.
As always, independent safes, we love them and everything they bring to us. Independent safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes, fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit independentsafes.com today for security that stands strong. And if there's anything that I know when it comes to independent safes, is that they are strong and they're great in what they provide. So if anyone could use one, I'm sure Minconi could use one because he can buy one and then he can shove DeMeo in there, lock it away. So he doesn't have to worry about any of the he doesn't have to worry about him anymore. Throwing shade at him on Twitter and stuff like that.
But he got real quiet since I've been on here.
Independentsafes.com, free shipping, $99 and over. They got everything you need. Tell them that Tilt Mets sent you.
And then, of course, we got to talk about our friends over at Manscaped. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, but this stays active throughout the whole show. It stays active all the time. Use the code TMDUP, which stands for Tilt Mets Do Us Part. At manscaped.com, you get 20% off site-wide, whatever it is you want, and free shipping. And I cannot stress this enough. If you are over a certain age, you should be looking into some manscaping stuff. Even if you don't want to, buzz down there, you need to trim your nose hair. You need to trim your ear hair. You need to shape up your beard. You need to shave your head, whatever it is. Manscaped has all the stuff to have you covered. Look at that. Look at that fine array of stuff that Ibby puts back into the package every time after he uses it so that he can show it on this show, which is a level of commitment that, quite frankly, I applaud because I don't have. But listen, they've got tons of great stuff. They even have super breathable boxer briefs that I wear when I play softball, when I go to the gym. They're great. They're super comfortable. So you might sit here and think, manscaping's not really my thing. just check them out. And why not? If you're going to check them out, get 20% off and free shipping courtesy of us. Use the code TMDUP. Back into the conversation. So, John, this is the one that I think is kind of the one negative thing that's sticking in Mets fans' sides right now. It's the Edwin Diaz suspension. MLB is fundamentally unserious with this. I don't understand how there's not a way to determine what the substance is and whether or not that substance is illegal. And also, why not is every player allowed to wash their hands first, the way some players are allowed to wash it off, and some players just get thrown out of the game? I think when it comes with an automatic 10-game suspension, I think that's worse than getting bumped from one game. You know what I mean? So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this as a former pitcher? I know the sticky stuff, they're trying to ban it, whatever, but I mean, this is weak. This is so weak.
It's crazy that starters and relievers would get the same suspension, first of all, because as you said, it's 1, maybe 2 if it's whatever, compared to 10 days. Like, that's potentially 6 or so appearances by him, maybe more if the stuff plays. Also, at this point, like, people have felt Major League Baseballs. They're very hard, very firm. Everybody talks about it. It's not even anything I need to get into. It's a hard ball to throw, even with the mud they put on it. The mud doesn't do that much, and when it sits all day, it dries up a little bit also. If you're that concerned about it, like, install bullpen cameras, like, you can see what's going on in there. If not, like, put somebody down to the plate. Maybe MLB sends somebody down to the bullpen to make sure somebody running in isn't getting banged on the way in for putting rock rosin and dirt on their hands. If you're going to make substances legal, everybody knows the human body. Things react differently to everybody's sweat, dirt. Pitchers hit the dirt. Some people don't. Some people like rock, or some people don't like rock rosin. It all, like, depending on the pitcher, you could put the same amount on somebody. It's going to feel different on somebody else. So them saying you can use this and then being like, nah, you use too much of it. Like, what does that even mean? Right. How do you use too much of something that's legal?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
So we're not seeing crazy jumps in spin rates and any of this other stuff. People are just pitching and not killing people, which is the goal of using anything to dry your hands or get any kind of grip on the ball. What is it? Like, if anything, if you go too sticky, it's going to, like, affect you in a negative way. So I don't know why. Right. I'm very confused. Like, I've had to actually alcohol my own. Like, when I was in indie ball, somebody's like, "Oh, try sunscreen and rosin." And, like, as a sinker baller, that flattened my ball out, and I hated it. I had to go in and, like, alcohol my hands off. Like, I couldn't pitch. I didn't even like rosin. I couldn't pitch with anything on the ball.
Did you think when you saw the picture, like, I know people were, like, zooming in, when you saw his hand and you saw some of the white out there,
the down clay underneath the turf you see in the infield is a very dark, deep clay. So when you go down there and wipe it in, which pitchers do get to below the surface because they kick most of it up when they're warming up, that's the color of it. It clearly wasn't, like, shiny, like any kind of tack or pine tar or anything. You know, it would glisten a little differently. It was the flat clay color over rosin.
I think the thing that made me angry the most, and maybe you guys are the same way, is the fact that, you know, we have umpires that say the things that they say, and then there's no accountability on their end, because all they have to say is, "Oh, it's in my report," and then, you know, when they ask them a question, the response is, "Well, you know, I've done this thousands of times, and it was too sticky," and then that's it. It's like, hearing something like that, it's like, no, tell me more. Tell me what exactly is going on. You're going to sit there and blatantly say, "Nope, that was an illegal substance."
Not only that,
please provide me something.
Day of, he said it was too much, like, too sticky. He used too much of it. Next day, he goes, "Well, I know that wasn't even," like, how do you change from he used too much rosin to it wasn't rosin? I know what rosin feels like.
Yeah, it's damage control. It's absolutely
It's
it's totally bullshit. And it's an arbitrary, nobody's going to compare, you know, the use of sticky stuff to the use of steroids, right? Like, in that kind of broad strokes. But, like, you are potentially, you know, you're to a lesser extent, you're tarnishing somebody's reputation. You're also removing them from the game in critical moments. The Mets are on this unbelievable run. Like, if he cheated, he cheated. But if you're going, his hand felt too sticky to me. I've touched a lot of hands. I've touched a lot of hands too. What do you want me to, like? What?
I'm going to take 10 games from their closer out. You're like, not only that, even when they went through the whole spider tack situation, how many hitters were like, "I don't give a shit as long as I don't get hit in the face with a baseball." Like, use whatever you want. It's not affecting the ball that much. It's not making them that much better. Like, I'd rather that than get hit with a 99-mile-an-hour fastball in the face.
Everyone's throwing the ball harder and faster. It's like, if anything, like, if we want to talk about safety, like, allow these guys to have a proper grip of the ball that you say is even hard to throw. Normally allow them to get a proper
have a catch with it. Like if you get a fresh big league ball without the mud or whatever, it's like hard to have a catch from 30, 40 feet easy. Then you add the mud, it's controllable. But as I said, the ball dries out in minutes after that mud's applied. Everything evaporates. It's sitting in those bags all day. Like you need something on it. It helps a little. It takes like the shininess off of it. But my biggest thing, like John said, like how are you going to have some guys wash their hands and some guys banged immediately?
Right.
That's my biggest problem with it. Like, if it's immediate ejection, immediately eject everybody. Don't be like, nah, go wash it off.
Yeah. Right.
That makes
especially if your logic in this case, like it was at first, that it's too much of a legal substance.
And that's what they
then
deem.
You should be allowed. You should be allowed to wash that off. If it's not an illegal substance, which again you can't tell anyway by touching somebody's hand. Yeah. But if it's not an illegal substance, then he should have the ability to wash that off. Yep. It's ridiculous. I don't know if you guys know this, but I spent a summer a couple years ago because I thought it would be cool working for the MLB, doing some of this, kind of working behind the scenes. And I don't know if it was not really enforcement, but it was more like in the compliance portion of it. So I had full, complete, unfettered access to the clubhouse, to the dugout, to where the humidor, where the balls are stored. And part of what we did working independently for Major League Baseball, not for any teams, because you only work in the regions that you live in. So, I worked at Angel Stadium and Dodger Stadium, and we would have to go in. Again, we're independent people. We'd have to go in and make sure that the balls were not too dark, not too light. We had to oversee the handoff from the clubhouse director or whoever it was that was really good at rubbing the baseballs with mud. We had to make sure that they were stored in the humidor properly. We had to make sure that 2 bags of unopened rosin were put in the bag with the balls, and they were brought to the umpires directly, where the umpires would inspect them, open up 1 bag of the rosin, and then we spent the rest of the game checking for violations. That's what we did. Yep. We walked around into the training area, making sure people weren't going back there and, rubbing something on their arm and then using that off their sleeve. So it's not like no one's checking. We're checking all the time. Yep. It's ridiculous.
I not only that, like if you want to check, if you want to get technical on how you can actually check and detect this, you can see if a player is using a rosin bag relatively easy. Check the rosin bag. If they have residue and other shit on their hands, it's going to leave it on the outside of that rosin bag. Go look at the rosin bag. If you think there's more stuff on it, go see the color of the rosin bag. Back in the day, you used to be able to, it was brown and dark. There was sunscreen. Like, it was just tacked up. Like, it shouldn't be like that anymore. They'll have dirt on it, but it's not going to pick up the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Couple good comments here. Douglas Barnes saying 3 games for intentionally throwing at someone, but if your hand is sticky, automatic 10 games. I mean, that shows you about how dumb it is.
Yeah.
I still think they should give it maybe toss them out of that game and then kind of do an overnight look into the actual issue and before suspending somebody for 10 games.
Yeah. Well, after the game, you can go and you can look and you can check their locker and you can check. Not that somebody on the team's not going to help them out and move stuff, but you could check. Yeah. Theoretically, you could really look into
how many MLB people are between authentication. What you did, MLB has people in the clubhouse constantly. Yeah. They're in there all the time.
Yeah,
people aren't you could be able to see if somebody's going in and messing or taking stuff or taking uniform and moving it. Authentication's all over all that crap anyway.
And there were 3 of us. There was one at every stadium every night. Again, I don't mean to pull the curtain back for all these folks, but I'm never going to do this job again, so it doesn't matter. But there's 3 of us. There's 1 person on the visiting side, 1 person on the home side, and there's 1 person who floats in between both. And at any given moment, we could be anywhere. And we're not sitting here trying to, I was not saying that I was lenient, but I'm not trying to sit here and get people in trouble. But there's okay, this guy is covering the baseball with something or smearing something all over his glove, which, by the way, I will say in a full season of doing it, I never saw once. Covering with a bunch of teams, I never saw anybody doing that. The worst thing you would see is somebody pulls out their cell phone to text their wife or something. I think that's the worst, which technically is illegal. Because of all the stuff with the Astros and the phones and the buzzers and you can't have your phone during the game. But that was the worst. That was the worst you would see. Is somebody like, oh man, like, hey, Manconi, come over here. Let me show you, like the steaks I grilled last week. Like literally, like that's what it is. Like showing somebody, like, oh, this is the barbecue we just had. This is the pool I just had installed. Like, that's it. Like there was nothing egregious ever. Yeah. We were such nuisances. Like honestly, I hated it because it was a little bit too much of a narc job for me. Yeah. but it was cool because this is what all made it worth it. This is not the point of the show, but I was the first person who was not a member of the Cardinals team to congratulate Albert Pujols for hitting his 700th home run.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, so to answer Aunt Rivera's question, John, was that the time you met the legendary Fred Wilpon and took a friendly pic? It was not.
Stop posting that picture.
Sometimes I like to do it just to piss people off.
Stop posting that.
That was when Todd Frazier invited me down to the field for batting practice. If we're gonna drop names, Hollywood John, baby, I'm back.
Hollywood John.
Okay, let's talk about the other pitcher. Let's talk about Kodai Senga. Weird situation for Senga this year. And look, I think people talking, and most people have been supportive of it, John, but some people are idiots and they talk smack. What's going on with this guy? He doesn't want to pitch. He's from a different culture where things are handled differently and everybody knows their body. I just think it's going to be great when he gets back on the field. It's going to be terrific. And hopefully he makes it back on the field this year, but just your thoughts on just kind of the whole saga with Senga this year.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of confused me a little bit also, because again, I'm not used to I'm not used to injuries being handled that way from my experience and from other people that I know and work with and everything. That being said, with how many people re-injure themselves in baseball over here, like maybe that's that. Listen, if he's going to take an extra couple of months to get himself right and move on and be good, I'm cool with it. I think fans are just like, oh, we need him. We need to make the run this year without looking at like the next 3-4 years. Like, if our team's okay this year and we sneak into a playoff spot, like I'd rather not injure him in the path to like next year, the year after, when we put together better squads. And as he said, he knows his body. If that's what he's used to and that's what the culture is doing over there, they're very smart over there also. Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, the injury rates are way lower over there than they are here. Maybe there's something to it. I don't think that MLB will ever get there fully because they need guys back. And that's how they make their money. But honestly, good for the Mets for allowing that to happen. I think Daisuke got changed too much too quick, and they kind of yanked him out of what his crazy, remember his crazy schedules that he would throw 150 pitch bullpens the day before his starts, and the Red Sox were like, yeah, that's never happening again, and right away hurt. So if that's how he's going to do it, good for the Mets for giving him. As a fan, I love him. I want to see him pitch every 5 days. As a baseball guy, if it works out best for him and that's what he feels he needs and the Mets are giving it to him, I understand.
Yeah. Maybe I think that's a great point from John, where it's just like, I could understand why people would go, that's weird. Like it's strange, right? It's not something that us, even if we didn't play, like John played, we didn't, but we watch baseball all the time. We know about the kind of timelines for injuries. And so even fans are going to go, that's a little strange, but I don't think you should really sit here and I don't think anybody should be upset over the way this has gone. It's a bummer he's not here.
I don't think it's I don't want to pitch thing either. I think he really he even said, I'm not feeling pain. I'm just not right yet.
And I've been saying, for the longest time now, let him do whatever he needs to. Yes, as a fan, I love watching him pitch every 5th day, every 6th day. He was awesome last year. I would love to see how he integrates onto this team and what he can provide for us. But at the same time, I don't want him to be rushed back just because everyone's bitching and moaning, and then he gets hurt again, then we don't see him. Look, take your time. Whenever he's ready, and he's I'm to the point now, whenever we get these updates on him, I'm just like, look, I want the guy to get healthy. I want him to get better. Whatever it is that he has to do, let him do it. When you tell me, hey, he's pitching at City tonight. Hey, he's pitching at wherever they are, on that given day on the schedule. He's pitching that night. Great, fantastic. Until then, let him do what he has to do. I know it's their job to give constant updates, but me personally, I'm operating as if I'm not going to see him. So when I do see him, it's even that much bigger. But that's how I'm looking at the entire thing. But yeah, I never looked at this and said, oh my God, this guy is just he doesn't want to play. He's stuck in this. It's another excuse. I've never ever looked at it like that, because we've said multiple times on this show, these guys know their bodies. They know what they have to do to take care of themselves. Let them do and go through their process. They'll eventually get here. Again, you have to be patient.
Yeah, and I've tweeted a bunch of times how, from my personal experience, and again, other pitchers I've worked with, like my shoulder issues were caused by my knee. So my knee ACL meniscus surgery threw my mechanics off enough where it really affected my shoulder. If that's like, and he's like, I'm not feeling pain. I'm just not mechanically where I need to be. If he feels like that's going to open himself up to other bigger situations, like
figure it out.
Please take your time, man. Like, we're good. Take your time. I'd rather it not be a 2-3 year thing of him just like, or the rest of his career of him just battling through different things constantly because he rushed back.
I just thought of this kind of as we were talking through it, John. Do you think, I know late in his tenure here, a lot of people were frustrated with DeGrom because DeGrom wasn't necessarily hurt during some of these things. Now, obviously, he was probably more hurt than anybody thought because he wound up getting Tommy John almost immediately when he got to Texas. So there was obviously some kind of issue that was lingering. But there was a lot of the way it was reported, at least, was DeGrom he doesn't feel right. He's kind of not 100%. He's no pain, but he can't really throw. So do you think there's some like residual frustration over, but they're two different people. So you can't really, bring that in. But as a fan, I could see why you might kind of correlate those things and go like, I just want to know what's happening, or I just want him back.
Yeah, I get, again, I'm a fan now. Like I work with people, like I'm a Mets fan. So like I want that. And any information is good information, but what is the information going to be that he feels like he can't clear his front hip out? No, like fans are going to be like, oh, I don't even, all right. Like what the hell does that mean to me? Like he's not getting himself in the right spot. Like it's not an injury update. It's not an update on, hey, like this healed or this, we're waiting on something. It's more of him getting ready to be a big league pitcher again.
I could agree with that.
Yeah.
Jump in here really quick to the comments because this has been coming in. Well, first of all, Douglas Barnes, isn't Senga going on a rehab assignment next week? Yes, he is. Yes. And that's why we brought it up. We haven't talked a lot about Senga this year because he has been gone and it has been kind of nebulous as to when he's coming back. But it seems as though his comeback is, I don't want to say imminent because it's going to take a starting pitcher a month, it's a full spring training's worth of starts to come back. So yes, he supposedly is going on one next week. And that's why we brought it up. John, this is kind of to backtrack a little bit. This is the fallout from the Diaz stuff that we were just talking about, from Tim Healy, from Subway to Shea. Thank you. Drew Smith is now on the IL with a sprained right elbow, the team announced. Sprain is a partial or full tear of a ligament. The severity of Smith's sprain is not clear. And this is, Smith comes in kind of in a rush after Diaz gets suspended. He comes out of the game almost immediately because he said it didn't feel right. And now here we are. I know the sprain could be nothing, but a sprain could also be a lot of things. And this is very unfortunate.
Yeah, I highly doubt that it was that situation. The other day, I tweeted at somebody before, like, even the lower minors, when I was in Brooklyn in short season ball, like that was the first time I was a relief pitcher. I was a starter when I was in the Cubs organization. Mets turned me into a relief pitcher, and Mark Valdez, our pitching coach, spent a lot of time making sure that I knew and making sure that I knew how to get myself ready, because there are situations situations like that, situations that sometimes a guy walks, hits the guy, and gives up a base hit in a minute and a half. And now you have to come in. So, like, there were games where relief pitchers come in where they may get 2 or 3 crow hops, 2 or 3 fastballs off the mound and be like, I'm good. Like, I'll get my warm-ups on the mound. I'm willing to bet that he took way more time that game than he has in regular routine just warming up to go. Unless you're slotted, hey, like, you're going to throw the 8th inning. Like, if you're coming in a situation where some guy just gave up 3 or 4 straight hits, you may not know until the at-bat before that you're going in. Mm-hmm. So, he had time to, kind of get himself back, loosen up a little bit, get on the mound. So I don't think that – I've seen people talking about it. Like, I would have a hard time thinking that he's not kind of used to that already, especially with how much time he did take. Again, if they put him right on the mound, said you have 7 pitches, let's go, different.
Yeah, I also let's be honest. Look, and I'm not the biggest Drew Smith fan in the world, but I don't want to see anybody get hurt. No. But Ibby also – Drew Smith's been hurt a lot. Like, Drew Smith gets hurt all
Yes,
the
sir.
time. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I think it's bad optics. I think it's another negative in the look at what MLB is doing. They're kind of creating this circus.
Yeah.
With the suspension, like, well, the ejection and then the suspension and the who knows what the sticky stuff is, and was it too much or was it banned, whatever. And then by the way, the guy who comes in is also injured now. Like, I think it just looks really bad, but I don't think there's a correlation necessarily.
No, and like you said, it doesn't help that Smith gets hurt as often as he did. And for us as Mets fans, it sucks because, again, you're seeing something like this happen, to your point just now, John, where it's like this guy gets tossed out because he's not allowed to wash his hands. You toss him out right away. This guy comes in quick. He ends up getting hurt. And now, based off of the rules, they can't call people up, or with, all the, like, you're playing a man down. So it's like you're putting more pressure on everyone else. So it's just like, is safety really a thing here? I really don't know. But no, overall, everything, it's frustrating. Like you said, we're not the biggest Drew Smith fans. But again, the last thing we want to see is somebody get hurt or, lose their livelihood potentially or whatever it may be. But yeah, it sucks. It sucks for the team. It sucks for him. But hopefully, in the end, he's okay. And then, the team can, pick themselves up, because look, they're coming up on a stretch where it's going to be 17 games in 17 days. And there's going to be a lot of strain put on that pen. And we don't get Diaz back until the 3rd of July, I think. I think that's the date, or the 6th. I've lost something. Beginning of July. We don't get him back until. So there's going to be a lot of strain put on this team. So we'll see what David Stearns and company can cook up.
John, I think when you look at that, they have more. I know they have to play a roster spot down, which is another reason why they have to figure out how to make this less arbitrary. But put that aside for a second.
Thank you,
I think there's an obvious way to, kind of stem the tide, because they have better starting pitching options with the likes of Jose Buto or going back to Christian Scott. I think you have to start to look now, especially off of what happened in his last start, and that's sending Tyler McGill to the bullpen to try to give you some innings. And then the other part, this is brought up by Darren, both of these guys coming off of injury in their own right. And I know you're not in the organization actively, but he's saying maybe the Mets can get something out of Fujinami or Bryce Montez de Oca. I mean, those are two really
Bryce, get healthy.
Those are two very lively arms. I know Fujinami has issues with control, but I mean, those guys are, if they're healthy and they're right, they're about as good as a bullpen arm in terms of stuff as you could have.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name right now. I actually just texted my brother a clip. Somebody in Syracuse right now, a sidearm, kind of not a sidearm, but like a weird arm angle. Guy's like a 1.5 ERA in Syracuse right now out of the pen, throwing mid-upper 90s from a weird arm angle. I'm like, why is this guy not? Obviously, he can't come up now and fill in that spot, but blanking on the name. Do you guys see that?
Is it Tyler Adcock? Because they called him.
No.
Because he's the guy who got called up to replace Drew Smith. Is Adcock?
No, it wasn't him. It was
okay.
Latin name. I'm trying to think of who it is. But the guy's been dealing this year and apparently his whole career. And I just saw a clip of his, inning yesterday. I don't want to get out here and close it down. But he has like a 1.5 in Syracuse right now. I think he pitches to like a mid-2 in his career.
Charlie's saying Wilkin Ramos?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There you go.
I did not even, like, I was completely unaware of this.
I texted my brother today. I said, who is this and why is he not in our bullpen? Sent the video. And I was like,
nice.
Like, but he's dealing down there, and he's a guy that, guys like that can become good slots. Unfortunately, Lavender went down, and he's hurt again this year. He was somebody that I was like, oh, I wanted that this year. But it's all right. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the Mets have guys that they could piece together when they need to. Fujinami, question mark. Fujinami has great stuff, but like,
do you think Tyler McGill belongs in the bullpen?
1,000%. And I'm not so, like, initially when I saw it, I was like, oh, he has much, like, look what Trevor Williams did to help out a couple years ago. Like, the dude could eat up 4 innings, make a spot start, go out of the pen and throw 1, go out of whatever. And then I was watching him like, do you just turn him into an 8th inning guy and let him gas at 101 because he has a good arm? And I think he's holding back to start. Like, is he going to be a low 100 guy if you let him go for 1 inning and just be like, hey, 8th is yours, air it out? Yeah. Maybe. So I think he has kind of options with both of those. I don't know if he would throw 100 something. I'm just assuming based off his start velocities that if they give him an inning and say, hey, just gas it out for 15 pitches, he'll do it. That being, I don't know if he's more valuable as that Trevor Williams kind of floater. But yeah, I think that the bullpen is where he would succeed the most, sustainably, for sure.
Okay. I know a lot of people feel that way. I mean, I was kind of cautiously optimistic as to what he could do as a starter, adding that splitter or the fork ball, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I think now the returns are kind of like I don't know that he has the length to be an everyday starter on a good team in the major leagues.
As a pen guy, you really need, 2 really good pitches and then 1 to show. If you let him loose and just be like, go let it eat with your fastball and that spork ball thingy and then flash your curveball or slider, sometimes I think that changes his whole entire thing. He's letting it's 1 inning. You're not seeing it, 2-3 times. Each batter seeing it once. I think that pitch is good enough where if he really just sticks to those 2 and develops it and gets it, kind of tightens up with that, I think that's a really, really good move for using him the right way.
I think it makes a lot of sense. By the way, there's over 500 people now watching us live, and thank you. Shout out to everybody who is watching
you so much.
live.
Yes, thank
you. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're watching over on Twitter and X, retweet it, repost it, whatever the vernacular you want to use now. Retweet will never be out of my vocabulary. It's never going to happen because it was Twitter for so long, and Twitter's a better name. But anyway, if you want to jump over to YouTube, you can do that too, because watching on YouTube is the best way to make sure you're always aware of what we're doing when we're going live. We do go live 5:30 Eastern every Wednesday. We're going to get out of here in about 10 minutes or so. This way we're clear of the start of the Subway Series Game 2. But before we do that, Ibby, I'm going to bring this one to you first because I know that you feel kind of passionate about this. It's probably the last thing we get to, but that is Brett Baty. Brett Baty goes down to Syracuse. Brett Baty is on an absolute tear. Brett Baty has an OPS over 1,000. He had 2 home runs today. He's hit like 8 home runs since he's been down there.
63 at-bats.
Yeah, potentially playing second base some, doing a little bit of that. Because, look, you could say all you want about Vientos not being a third baseman in the major leagues. Right now, Vientos is the Mets' third baseman. He's doing everything well enough. People thought he was going to be an absolute butcher. He's made some misplays, but he's also made some incredible plays too.
But he makes up for it with his bat.
And he makes up for it with his bat. Like he's good enough right now, if he's going to hit this way, to be a major league third baseman. Let's call it what it is. So Baty's going to have to find another way back. I don't like Brett Baty. I think because look, to me right now he's the definition of a quad A player. Every time he goes down to AAA, he tears the cover off the ball. Every time he comes back, this is 3 times now. He comes back to the major leagues and he can't hit at all. So is there anything here that you're seeing in Baty, even if it's just the fact that Jeff McNeil is terrible, that makes you want to say maybe he can play a little second base?
I mean, I love the look. Anytime someone goes down, they're having success offensively. You're like, oh, good, great. They're not losing their confidence or going out there. Now, granted, when you watch some of these home runs and you see a guy, piping in an 89-mile-an-hour fastball and then he hits it 430 feet, it's like, okay, well, you should do that. But I'm glad he's hitting well. But to me, I'm more interested, and I'm not seeing it because it's not as sexy to see someone just playing second base as opposed to hitting this moonshot. I want to know, and I'm not getting that much information. How is he really looking at second base? Because that's the only way he's making it back up, in my opinion. Because Vientos has a stranglehold on third base. He deserves it. He deserves the run. We've been saying if he gets a long look, can he prove himself? Can he hit velocity? And he has been. For Baty, we've known forever that he can dominate at AAA, and what he's done down there, it's well documented and well known. So I can't sit here and be like, wow, a 1,200 OPS is incredible. It's like, well, this is what he's always done. Like, if he comes back up.
Oh, Ibby just froze.
Oh, what the heck, Ibby? Yep.
He was right in the middle of a good point. Well, you know what, John? Oh, he's back. Wait, no.
Am I back?
Kinda.
God damn it. It just came out of nowhere too. I was completely fine. No, but I'm more focused on him and his defense overall. And that's what I want to see. And I haven't heard anything. I don't know if you guys have heard anything in terms of, can he turn a double play? Does he look like a butcher out there? Is he slow? Like, I haven't seen anything. I just see the home runs, which are great. But, I would love to see those home runs at City, but they're few and far between because, I always bring this back to what was said. And I think it's a point that's well taken from JD Martinez. I've said it multiple times on the show so far. He said when he was getting up to speed at AAA, they said, how's your progress coming? And he said, no velocity. So it was hard to get his mechanics proper and get his swing down because everything was so slow. So when I see a Brett Baty dominating, but then once he faces velocity, he struggles and he can't lift the ball and he strikes out a lot. Like, that tells a story to me. So when John says quad A player, it's hard for me to go against that because until it's shown otherwise, I have to agree with that.
I mean, John, look, you and I have talked privately, of course, about the Mets and stuff too. Like when I say what I say, if I'm being really harsh about Beatty, if I'm being really harsh about McNeil, there's no disdain. I want to see everybody on the Mets succeed. I just realize that not everybody is going to. And, and it's just my opinion. I've been wrong. I've been right. I was right on Harrison Bader. But, when Nimmo first came up with the Mets, I thought he was going to be a nice fourth outfielder, and he's probably the best left fielder in baseball. So I was wrong. Like, I've been right. I've been wrong. I'm not a scout. I didn't play pro ball. I just have, my eyes and just my judgment. And so like anybody else, I'm going to be right. I'm going to be wrong, whatever. But am I being, again, as somebody who has done this, it's a hitter's league. AAA is a hitter's league historically. Mm-hmm. So am I too harsh on Beatty saying that he's a quad A player? Because I think that's what I've seen.
Yes and no, but I don't think for that reason that you're talking about. So going back to what Ibby said, the velocity and the stuff at AAA and even in rookie, it's not that different. You still have guys that are throwing 100. You still have guys that are throwing in the mid to upper 90s. You're going to have more guys that don't, but that's because the big league doesn't have any guys that don't. So, I was talking to, scouts for some of my pitchers around here, college and high school guys that I have. And scouts are like, we need to see 93 or we're not coming to your game. Like if you're not throwing 93 in high school or kind of like, it's not worth it. Look at every starting staff. Every starting staff has their slower guys are throwing 92, 93. So why are we going to take guys out? If they get hurt, we replace them. That's it. So I don't think the stuff, like I wouldn't say that he can't handle velocity. It's consistency that gets you to the big leagues. So the stuff's consistently better in the big leagues where you're not going to have those, guys coming out of the pen throwing 88 to 92. Right. Also, so the point that Derek Jeter made the other day, everybody gave him so much crap for it. He came out and said, like, Joe Torre always said you can't measure heartbeat. And everybody's like, well, yeah, you can. It's called an EKG, all this shit. Like, this is what he's talking about. It happened when Beatty first came up, and he struggled mentally, and he went back down and raked, and then he came up again for a longer time. And he had success, and then it fell off, and he struggled again, and then he went back down and raked. I'm not so sure that the best move for Brett Beatty wouldn't be to get sent to Kansas City or Miami, or like places where not a dig against him. Some people just how many times have we seen superstars come to New York and fail?
Yes,
not saying
Ibby has said that the whole time. John, Ibby has said that the whole time. He goes, "I think Beatty would be
can't measure heartbeat."
Yeah.
You can physically measure somebody's heartbeat, but you can't measure how it syncs up with him as an athlete.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ibby.
No, I was just going to say, like, I've been saying that it sucks because we've seen it happen with other players here. And we could talk, I've been saying for the longest time, I think development at certain parts for this organization needs to be improved because it is telling when you see because again, I know New York is tough, but I can't chalk it up to always just being New York as to why guys just don't pan out. But, we've seen other players adjust and go elsewhere and succeed. And, whether you want to talk about the Travis d'Arnaud, who had a high pedigree as a prospect, the Justin Turners reinventing themselves, what have you, there's you can go down the line. But, when I see a guy like this who has talent, who has the raw power, and it's just not working here, I've been saying, and I'll stick to it, like, and maybe he's just building up to show others that he can do it at a ridiculous clip, and then they're going to trade him elsewhere to get a bullpen arm. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know, but I still think that he's going to end up going to your point right there, John. Like he's going to end up going to St. Louis, Kansas City, someplace smaller, and he's just going to be able to go out there and play ball. And he's going to,
in my opinion, quad A players do what he's doing in AAA. Quad A players hit 265, 270. They'll have 10, 12 home runs, and they get called up to fill in. He's not. He's murking the ball in Syracuse. Right. He always does. Yeah. He's demolishing baseball. So it's there. It's just some disconnect, and it happens all the time where there's just it may not be the best bet for him.
This is a good question, and I guess we'll get out of here on this. But Charlie's saying one way to look at it: who's more valuable to the team, Beatty or DJ Stewart? Knowing that McNeil could play the outfield if needed. Ibby, that's interesting because you could. I know a lot of people are sour on DJ Stewart. You could lose him to bring up Beatty, knowing that you can fill in with McNeil all over the infield and outfield. So your thoughts there on this DJ Stewart, Beatty, McNeil conversation?
I mean, it's not one that's improper, especially now with Marte down, and you brought up Ben Gamel, who Ben Gamel might be able to provide the same, if not better, at this point as to what Stewart has done. So I get the idea, but I think that, to John's point just before, talking about, trying to be consistent, and we've seen, I don't know if Beatty coming up and only having certain spots where he would play, and not being as consistent would help him. So I get it in nature, mainly because DJ Stewart's not providing anything for this team. But I think if Beatty comes up, I think the plan would be to get him consistent time. I would hope consistent time at second base. But again, I haven't seen anything on this guy playing second base.
The double play clip, and he turned it, but it did not look like it would work at the big league level consistently yet. Again, I don't know how quick his feet can get.
Okay.
But it looked like a third baseman trying to turn a double play second, messing around. Like, it got the job done, but will that work?
And we talk about,
and will that work with De La Cruz running down the line at first? Probably not.
No, probably not. Like, it's crazy because, you see this, and, I mean, it took him pretty much a year and a half to get like, we saw him come up and play third base, and he was one of the worst third basemen, in baseball last year. It took him an entire offseason to get proper at the position that he'd been training his entire life to be a part of. And now we're saying, okay, at the drop of a hat, go play second base. It's like, well, it's how's that going to comply? How's that going to work? I don't know. So if you're saying that, like, it's going to take some time. So that consistent playing time might not be there. So
I know this is a dumb thing to say, but I think you guys, like, on the surface, it's going to sound dumb, but I think both of you know what I'm saying. He doesn't look like a second baseman to me. Like, his body, his mannerisms, he's lanky. He doesn't seem like a guy who can play second base in the big leagues. He does not.
His feet aren't quick enough.
No.
It's not.
And I know people go, oh, second base is easy, all right, because they played second base in like seventh grade.
Not there.
It's not. It's not. And you look at somebody who's an elite defender his whole career, like Jose Iglesias, who's played mostly shortstop. He's got maybe the best hands you've ever seen. He's got incredibly quick feet. And you look, I mean, I know he's probably a little nervous that first game coming up with the Mets, but, like, he had trouble turning double plays. He had trouble, and this is a guy who's a career middle infielder and one of the best defensive players we've seen in a long time, and he couldn't quite do it. And I know Beatty deserves credit for what he did to make himself into a better third baseman, but John, I don't think he's a second baseman.
No, I can't. That's what I was getting at by, like, when he looked like a third baseman turning the double play. It was clunky. His feet were slow. It's just not. And, like, do you ever envision him getting a ball up the middle and flipping it behind his back to Lindor at short to turn?
No, I don't.
It's never gonna.
I
Anything
don't.
up the middle he gets to is going to be eaten. Like, nobody's ever going to be. It's not happening. It's nothing. Not a knock against him. He's not built to. He just doesn't have that. It took him a year and a half to adjust to third. And that's a straight ball comes straight up. He turns, makes his double plays. Like, second base is a much more, I'd say, athletic position. I mean, third base is too, but, like, you know what I mean? Up the middle, it's a much more athletic, having to turn and avoid tags and do things that I don't trust that he'll be able to jump over a runner to turn to, or whatever he has to do to avoid danger.
And I know prospects are just that, and nobody knows what any of these guys are going to be. But, like, and look, for this year, who cares, right? Like, you just want the team to be good. And, like, before you came on, I said a couple weeks ago, and I reiterated it here, there's value in winning. It doesn't matter if a team can win a World Series or not by anybody's estimation. You don't just get to May and go like, oh, we suck, let's trade everybody. Like, that doesn't make any sense. No. There's value in winning ball games and teaching teams how to win and teaching ball players how to win and all that. So, for right now, if the Mets need a second baseman and Beatty comes up and plays a little bit there and he's good at enough, that's fine. But the long-ranging view of this is there's Jet Williams, there's Acuna, there's Ronnie Mauricio, three guys off the top of my head who I am confident are better second basemen than
what's going to happen when Ronnie comes back next year? Because he's a better hitter and a better second baseman. What's Beatty going to do then? Learn another position? It's going to be 5 years before he finds something.
I would trade Beatty. I
think he's going to get traded before he goes back.
Yeah, I would try to trade him on the idea that he's 24 years old. The idea that look what he did at third base. Look how he learned how to be a better third baseman. He's tearing the cover off the ball.
Going to a lesser place. Yeah.
If I'm picking up on that, smarter people than me are picking up on the fact that he can hit. He clearly can hit.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just
I think that's what you, even if people aren't picking up on it, that's what you sell. That's how you sell him. Because I think right now, Vientos is your third baseman. There's no third baseman on the market next year. So I think Vientos is going to play third. And then, or at least, he's putting himself in a position where he can play third. And then you've got Mauricio to worry about, who I think is an excellent hitter. He, like you said, he's a better second baseman. And then you've got two guys in the minors in Acuna and Williams. And I know all these guys aren't going to pan out, and maybe they're outfielders, who knows? But I don't see, at the beginning of this season, the conversation was, wow, when you look at this, how does Vientos fit into the picture with Beatty here and Mauricio and Jet and Acuna? Now it's flipped. It's, where does Beatty fit? And the answer is he doesn't.
No, again, nothing against him. I still think, listen, he can go somewhere else, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was an all-star a couple of times. It really wouldn't shock me, because I think it's there.
I agree.
But I just don't. I think that would be like an old regime thing to do. I'm hoping that Stearns kind of is like, listen, we got Mauricio, who's better swing, better second baseman, more athletic. We have Acuna, we have Joe, we have all these guys we could piece in, and when they come up, make them into other things. Like, why are we going to mess around with this guy for 3 years, switching positions every year? When Ronnie's coming back next year, they're not going to keep Ronnie in Syracuse next year. I really would be pissed if they did. Like, I can't see them keeping him down in Syracuse next year.
I agree.
You can't have 3 second basemen of that caliber prospects.
And look, I know he's been bad and everything, but also Jeff McNeil's under contract. Yeah. And I don't think he factors into the mix. I think you got to get younger, you got to get better, but he is still here.
They'll eat it. They'll eat it if they need to.
Yeah, but right now he's another guy. He's another guy who's here doing it. So it's complicated.
No, it definitely is. I just wanted to bring
this up real quick. During a run, I'm going to be so mad though. Yeah, I'm be so mad.
No, I agree. There's one thing I will bring up when it comes to being down on the farm real quick. And second base, Luis Angel Acuna has been playing a lot better lately. 9 multi-hit games in his last 15, 26 hits, 12 RBIs, 6 stolen bases during that span, a 336 average over his last 26 games. Look, he started off the season really slow at Syracuse, and everyone says how much AAA is a hitter's paradise. And look, it was ugly to start the season, but he's been really coming on. And look, if we're talking about changing things up at second base, I know I had a conversation with Tone last week. He didn't think so. And I've had conversations with others who didn't think we might not see him this year. But when I see this and you're talking about getting potential change at second base, I think he is someone that you should see before you start experimenting with the likes of Brett Beatty, if things fall off even more with the likes of Jeff McNeil, or as we mentioned at the start of the show, if Jose Iglesias comes back to the mean.
Yeah, I was just shocked that they even thought about putting Beatty. I was like, maybe they'll make him an outfielder. I don't know. Like, how's his arm? Whatever. Can he track a ball? But
I mean, I feel like 2 years ago he was out in left field. He was
second base,
stuff,
or like, listen, another backup first. I don't know, first baseman. Try to plug him. I think he's more valuable. The better he is at whatever defensive position they put him in, the more they're going to get for him when they trade him.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. I think
sticking with second base is not helping the trade bait kind of.
No, I think reopening the conversation of putting him in left field or giving him some spot starts at first base and third base and rotating those 3 positions. To me, if you looked at Beatty again, he looks like a left fielder. He looks like a third baseman. He looks like a first baseman. He does not look like a second baseman.
No, he doesn't.
And the thing with the thing about catchers in the big league, everybody gives catchers a lot of leeway for offense because they're so focused on catching. They're handling their staff. Like, we're turning an infielder and putting 90% of his focus on his defense at multiple positions. Like, yeah, he's going to struggle with the bat if he's not, put him in left field and let him get back to hitting.
Yeah.
It's a very, not minimal work, but it's as far as the position goes, minimal work for getting yourself serviceable in the outfield and left field.
Also, just for what it's worth, if they had been playing him in left field this whole time instead of second base, maybe when Marte gets hurt, maybe he comes back up.
Right.
Because I know Nimmo doesn't have the arm for right field, but maybe you slot Nimmo into right field, you put Beatty into left field at least some of the time, and you just see what it looks like and you see how it goes. But I don't see people are like, oh, this guy got hurt, Marte got hurt, bring back Beatty. I don't see how Beatty finds his way back onto the team. Well, guys, that said, it's game time. First pitch just happened, so we should probably go and watch the Mets because we certainly don't want to be competing with the Mets. Ibby, do you have anything to say before we get out of here?
The last thing I want to bring up, I didn't get a chance to bring this up. We were talking about offense. A guy that has been a big part of this entire turnaround for the Mets in June was the return of Francisco Alvarez, and he is my man on fire. His last 7 games, 500, 600, 875 slash, 1475 OPS, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 6 walks, 6 RBIs. A big part of this team, a big part of this turnaround. He's been great. I want to see him here long term. We've talked about extensions for him for the longest of times. He makes the most sense. Hopefully it happens. We'll end up, we'll see what happens this offseason. But this team is thriving off of what he is providing.
Mark Vientos, diving play at third base and gets out Volpe on the throw.
Love it.
Love it.
Sparkling play by Mark Vientos right now.
Love it.
Oh, man. Save the double with Juan Soto coming up. That's the type of stuff
Beautiful.
You want to see.
Good stuff.
John, thank you for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate you.
Glad I could finally make it on.
And doing the thing we do. John Manconi, absolute best. And thanks for letting us do the show. Honestly.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
Doing great work.
Thanks for coming on the show and letting us do the show, the whole thing.
Of course, guys.
All right, guys. The game has started. We are going to get out of here. Ibby is flying solo next week and the next 3 weeks. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it. Maybe
I'll bring on some friends.
He's going to do a great job. He's going to bring some folks on. Maybe John will come back on. Who knows? I am not going to be able to do it. The time zone is going to be too different. But I am going to try to do something while I'm in the UK. With some of the Mets folks over there. We're doing a watch party at one of the places. I'll retweet about it with Mets UK. And then I also might do some podcast collaborations while I'm over there as well. So look for those. I'll tweet about it, all that fun stuff. Anyway, I'm John. That's Ibby. Thank you again to John Manconi, our guest this week. This is Till Mets Do Us Part. And as always, LFG, and the G stands for Grimace. M.
Right.
We'll see you guys next time. Later.